Okay, Langley, when you're ready, let the show begin.
Hello out there, my dear good friends. You're welcome to this play. I hope it makes you happy. I hope it makes your day. The players are all ready to bring this play to life and tell you a good story about love and greed and strife. Now let me introduce you to the characters in this play. They're all so very lively and have a lot to say. First, here is Frankie Mason, a young man with big dreams. He has a lot to live for, but instead he wants to scheme. And then there's Frankie's mother, the sweetest mom in the world, who cares so much for Frankie, 'cause for her, he is her pearl. And then there's Frankie's father, a fine, outstanding man, who worries that dear Frankie will wind up in the can. And then there's Mr. Kaplan, who knows the boxing game. He tries to guide young Frankie, but what happens is a shame. And then there's Joseph Russo, the type that preys on fools. He wants to make a quick buck by breaking all the rules. And then there's Murray Berman, who's one of Frankie's fans, a radio reporter who thinks that Frankie's grand. And then there's Howard Kleinberg, who's a right upstanding cop. He goes to bat for Frankie when things get really hot. And finally there's the lady, whose name is Gertie Brown. She falls in love with Frankie and turns him all around. So now sit back and listen to what the actors say. The action's gonna start now, and with that, I present the play.
Scene 1, time 1937, place a boxing gym in New York City. 3 men are standing outside of a boxing ring watching a man in the ring shadowboxing. One of the men outside of the ring is wearing a hat that says press. The second man, much older, is wearing a suit and is smoking a cigar. And the third man is holding a stool and a bucket. The man in the ring is muscular but not muscle-bound, about 6 feet tall, has brown hair, is in his early 20s and handsome. Outside of the ring are several chairs. A robe is draped over one of the chairs.
Your boy is looking good, Mr. Kaplan.
Yes, Murray, he is looking good. In fact, he's going to win big.
Is that a prediction?
Call it what you want. Smitty, tell Frankie to take a break.
Frankie, take a break.
Smitty places the stool and bucket in the ring. Frankie stops shadowboxing and sits down on the stool. Smitty gives Frankie a cup of water, which Frankie drinks.
How do you feel, Frankie?
I feel great.
Aren't you a little bit nervous going up against the champ?
Why should I be nervous?
Doyle has knocked out last 5 opponents and put one of them in the hospital.
Well, that won't happen to me. If anyone's going to be going to the hospital, it'll be him, not me. His guys were beat-up club fighters and cannon fodder to make him look good.
It's going to be a great fight. And Frankie is going to come out on top. He's going to be the next middleweight champion of the world. You mark my words.
Murray is writing rapidly in a notepad. Frankie climbs out of the ring. Smitty gives Frankie the robe that is draped over a chair, removes the bucket and stool from the ring, and exits the stage.
Do you have any more questions?
I have one more.
What's the question?
The fight's 2 days away. You have any plans before the fight?
Yeah, to take it easy and think about how I'm going to beat Doyle.
Thanks a lot, Frankie. And you too, Mr. Kaplan.
Murray exits the stage.
So, how do you feel, Frankie?
Didn't you hear me? I feel great.
Well, you should feel great. You're the hometown favorite.
I know.
And I know that you're a winner.
You got that right. Anything else?
Just keep up the good work. You know, you're going to show the world that you're the best. Think of it. Frankie Mason, the next middleweight champion of the world. This is your big chance, so don't blow it.
Don't agree. What do you mean by that?
You know what I mean.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You think I'm a fool? I know who you've been talking to. Those guys are trouble, and dealing with them is not worth the money.
Listen, Mr. Kaplan, you're my manager, you're not my father. I'll talk with anyone I want to, and if you don't like it, I'll get another manager.
That's up to you. I'm just warning you, kid. You know that I'm concerned about you, and I don't want to see you get into any trouble. You should have no problem with doing it. The only fighters he ever fought have been pushovers.
Well, I'm no pushover. The fight should be a big draw.
It'll be a big draw, all right. A Jewish guy fighting an Irish guy, and for the championship? What a dynamite combination. The arena will be packed.
The Jewish thing is for the press boys to play up. I'm fighting for the money, not for the glory of the Jewish people.
I haven't been in a synagogue since the day I was bar mitzvahed, and besides, my parents aren't exactly proud of what I'm doing.
Even though you're gonna line to be the champ?
That's right.
I guess they're not fight fans.
I guess not.
Well, maybe your parents are trying to look out for you.
Look out for me? Maybe. But listen, do you know what my parents wanted me to do?
What?
Become a school teacher. Can you imagine me going to school to become a school teacher? I hated school, and besides, my teachers are paid peanuts.
Just a moment. Being a school teacher is not such a bad job.
Who the heck wants to be stuck in a classroom with a bunch of kids?
There are plenty of guys and gals out there who gladly take that job, so don't put it down. Sometimes I wish I had stayed in school instead of getting into this racket.
I mean, why should you complain? You managed 3 world champions and you made a ton of money.
That's true, kid, but I've also seen 2 of my boxers die in the ring, and many more become punch drunk, and I don't want that to happen to you.
Don't worry, Mr. Kaplan, it won't.
That's what they all say.
Oh, Mr. Kaplan, don't make me cry.
You think that what I'm telling you is a joke?
No, I don't. But come on, give me a break, will you? You're bringing me down.
I don't mean to, kid. I just got into a thoughtful mood. You remind me of my first boy, Kid Kavanaugh. Ever heard of him?
Yeah, I heard he was a great fighter.
Well, there was more to him than that. And the kid, whose real name was Shlomo Rabinowitz, came from real poverty. I mean, his family was dirt poor. 6 months after they arrived in this country, the kid's father died, leaving his wife with no money and 4 kids to feed. The kid, who was the oldest, had no choice but to leave school and get a job, and he was only 15 years old.
Sounds like things were tough.
They sure were. Anyway, one day the kid walked into Sally's gym on East Broadway and said that he wanted to put on the gloves. I happened to be there at the time. Sally gave him a tryout, and the kid was dynamite. I took him under my wing, and under my guidance, he became one of the great fighters of all time. And he was only a teenager. And soon the kid was making great money, and it seemed that nothing could stop him from becoming champ, but he had one problem.
What was that?
He was hard-headed. When the kid was 19, he met a 16-year-old girl named Dolores. Dolores and the kid soon became very close, and everyone in the neighborhood expected they'd get hitched. But the kid had other plans, which did not include marriage. And when he was warned that he was playing with fire, he told everyone to mind their own business. And one day, Dolores' father and 2 brothers showed up at Sally's gym looking for the kid. They accused the kid of rape. A huge brawl broke out. It was so bad that the police had to be called, and it even made the newspapers. In the ruckus, the kid broke his right hand, and he was a righty. His hand was really smashed up. The kid had surgery to fix his hand, but he couldn't make a fist anymore. He could not make a fist anymore, even so the kid went back to fighting. But now, with his hand busted, he was never the same. Soon after he disappeared, and a few months later, they found his body in an alley off Hester Street. I went to the morgue to identify the body. His mother couldn't afford a decent burial, so I paid for the funeral, which was officiated by a rabbi. The kid could have been one of the greatest fighters in history if he had just done the right thing and not acted so smart.
That's too bad for the kid. But where does it say the kid had to listen to anyone? And besides, what does this have to do with me?
Before you do anything foolish or get involved in situations you may not be able to get out of, think of what happened to the kid when he got into trouble.
Listen, I'm not in any trouble, and I don't plan to do anything foolish. In fact, I'm laying off the girls until after the fight.
Frankie, I think you missed the point.
No, I got the point. But don't you worry about me.
I gotta worry. You're not the first pug I managed who thought he could handle things himself. I remember a few years ago, I managed a guy named Battling Mo Brown, a great fighter but greedy. For a few bucks, he'd throw a fight. One day, a couple of guys from the West Side offered Brown 5 C's to take a dive. Brown took the money, but unbeknownst to him, his father had bet the family's entire life savings on who else? His son to win. that Brown threw the fight. His family lost their entire life savings. The $500 went to pay expenses. Brown became a bum, and I was out of boxer. The point is that I have a lot of time and money invested in you. That's why if anybody approaches you about any business propositions, you tell them to talk to me. If anybody wants you to throw a fight, you tell them to talk to me. If anybody invites you to any private clubs, tell them to talk to me. Your job is to box. My job is to do the worrying. That way, you won't get into trouble. Okay, Frankie?
Listen, Mr. Kaplan, I know you're a good guy and I'm appreciative of everything you've done for me, but I can take care of myself. And all you gotta do is set up my fights.
Frankie, you're a good kid, but even a good kid hate to be turned by money. I know, from personal experience. How do you think I got started in this business?
I really don't know.
Well, I'll tell you. I came to this country from Russia when I was 7 years old. Like almost everyone else at the time, my family was poor. My family was poor. We lived in a tenement on the Lower East Side. My father became a peddler. My mother stayed at home to care for me and my 6 brothers and sisters. My father worked hard, but he made very little money. We were practically starving. One day I was on the street playing hooky from school when I discovered a place on Delancey Street. A lot of tough-looking guys were going in and out of this place, which grabbed my interest. So I decided to go in and take a look inside. It was the first time I ever saw a boxing gym. It wasn't a very big place, but there were a lot of guys in there training, and the noise was incredible. Guys were working out, sparring, shadow boxing, punching the bag, everything. And for a 15-year-old kid, I thought this was great. While I was standing around, this old guy came over to me and asked me what I was doing there, and I told him that I was checking out the place, and the old guy laughed and asked me if I wanted to be a fighter. Well, right then and there, I told him yes, and started working out at the gym. When I got home, my father walloped me for good for playing hooky, but I didn't care. I knew what I wanted to do. I didn't play hooky again, but in the evenings and weekends, I went to the gym and learned how to box. My parents didn't approve of my going to the gym, but what could they do? When I was 16, I fought my first professional fight for $5. I fought a kid named Charlie O'Hara, whose real name was Hyman Dinkowski. I lost the fight, but I liked the money and the action and continued fighting. But I wasn't that good. So after a dozen or so fights, I quit the ring, became a corner man. That's when I started learning the inside outs of the business, especially how boxing was not a sport, but a racket. But I didn't quit. Instead, when I was 23, I got my big break when I became the trainer and manager for Kid Clancy, who almost became middleweight champ. By this time, I was making good money, and boxing became my way of making a living. Soon I started managing other fighters, and the rest is history. But if it wasn't for the money, I doubt I'd be doing this now, and sometimes I think I should be doing something else.
Another great story, Mr. Kaplan. In fact, you're a walking history book of boxing, but I think it's time for me to go home.
Okay, kid, go home. Get some rest and watch what you eat. And remember, if you don't mess up, in 2 days you'll be the toast of the town because you'll be the next middleweight champion of the world.
Curtain. Scene 2. Time, evening, place, a kitchen. In the kitchen is a table where Frankie and his parents are having supper. Frankie's father is neatly attired in a suit. Frankie's mother is wearing a house dress. She is thin and appears worried. Frankie's parents speak.